Hello.
Hi. Hi, Dirk.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time to chat to us tonight.
No problem, anytime. Can you hear us fine, just to check?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, you sound great. Thank you. Just checking with everyone
Awesome.
else.
Yeah, we
No
got
one's
it.
saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
we got
nice.
it. We can hear.
Can we pour some wine?
Yeah. Okay, so Dirk, please tell us which should we start with? So we have the Syrah and the Chardonnay open. So should we start with the Chardonnay maybe?
Start with the Chardonnay, most definitely.
Cool.
Most definitely. Well, while you guys do that, I'll just tell everyone a little bit about what is in our wine club case. We're quite excited about this case. So we release a wine club case twice a year, and we basically last year the whole idea came together last year with all the lockdowns and everything, and we realized, that we really need to start to build a community almost of Saxenburg followers, and really talk more directly to our customers and build those relationships. And this wine club case is twice a year, like I said, and the idea is very much to reward our loyal followers, our loyal customers, and the people, that really, that's on this journey with us. So in this case, I always say it's a bit of past, present, and future that we include in the case. So our present, and the present for this current case is our 2021 private collection Sauvignon Blanc. Really lovely wine. It's showing beautifully now, and it's really perfect for December. Then the bit of the future is our Chardonnay 2020, the wine you have now, the private collection Chardonnay 2020. So this is actually a pre-release of the wine. We're currently selling on the 2019, and the 2019 just got a double gold at Veritas, so we're very excited about that. And this 2020 will only be released in a few months' time. So this is really a glimpse of where we're going. Then also part of the future is the second generation Syrah, which we'll also be tasting tonight. And then the Winemaker's blend just gives a bit of a glimpse of the other side of the more experimental side of Saxenburg, those two wines. And then, of course, we've got two older vintages, a Shiraz and a Cab, in there as well. And those wines have been stored in our Vinotech, put away for almost, in the case of the Shiraz, for more than 10 years, and those wines are drinking beautifully. But anyway, let's get on to the shop.
It's delicious.
So,
I already had a sip, I'm just saying. It's so good.
That's what I like to hear. So so I started at Saxenburg end of 2019. So 2020 is my first full vintage in control. So I'm really excited about this Chardonnay. Obviously, following a 2019 that's just got double gold, it's big shoes to fill. But I'm really excited about this Chardonnay, and I think the Saxenburg site is so unique for something like Chardonnay. We've obviously got the cooler aspects, so close to False Bay and Table Bay, and it really cools the farm down. And then we've got that lovely granite as well that gives a sense of minerality. So this wine, large portion, whole bunch pressed, very little sulfur additions, and then some of it, a portion of it naturally fermented as well. So as minimalistic almost an approach in handling the grapes as I can. And then after fermentation, I literally taste through each and every barrel, and I'll decide, oh, this barrel gets sulfur, this barrel doesn't get sulfur, this one goes through mallow, this one doesn't go through mallow. And so there's no set, oh, this entire batch of 10 barrels gets sulfured up in one go. There's nothing like that. There will maybe be 3 barrels that get sulfured up, and maybe different levels of sulfur as well, depending on what I feel and what I'm seeing in the wine. And then, I'll have all of these building blocks. So every single barrel is then basically a building block. And then in December, I start putting the wine together, or end of November, December, and I start blending this wine. It's putting the puzzle almost together. So the final wine is about 21% new oak and was in barrel on lees for 11 months. There's a portion of malolactic fermentation as well, but the mallow really just brings in some texture. And this wine is all about that texture and the weight on the palate. There's some beautiful fruit on it as well.
Would you consider yourself more of a new world winemaker or an older world winemaker?
I think the fortunate position as we find ourselves in as South African winemakers I think we sit in almost a middle ground between New World and Old World. A lot of times we can almost reach for the elegance of Old World, but with the fruit of New World, which I think is quite unique and quite exciting. So I'm gonna say we're in the middle.
I was literally just saying, I feel like that's exactly the expression I'm getting here. So super classic in the sense that this is exactly the kind of Chardonnay that we love. A real Chardonnay, not to be funny, but also there's a lot of fruit coming through, I think almost towards the end, or back palate. So that tropical sort of mango, that yogurty feeling is also there as well. So I quite like that.
And it's not like overly buttery, but it's still like got that yogurt creaminess.
But I think what I was gonna say, which is exactly what you're saying, but just differently, is that it tastes quite young, but still has that like typical Chardonnay sort of characteristic, which I really love and look for in a Chardonnay. So I would have never guessed the 2020.
At
2020.
least 2019.
Yeah,
I would
I
have
thought
said
it
at
was
least 2018 or 19.
Yeah.
18
Interesting.
or 19.
Yeah, I think with Chardonnay, with all wines, I think balance is important, but even more so in Chardonnay, you need to get that balance between, that butteriness that you can get from malolactic and extended lees contact, but with the fruit and the purity of fruit. You never want to hide the purity of fruit and the beautiful fruit that you get from the side. So it's really reaching a balance between that richness that you get from malolactic and lees contact and oak with the beautiful purity and fruit. So that's something that I focus a lot on when I'm blending. And a lot of my winemaking is very much, and it's something that I actually learned when I was at the Morganson with Carl van der Merwe. We spoke a lot about that our focus is very much on mouthfeel and texture and palate, more so than on aromatics. Aromatics will be there if you've got good grapes and you look after them well. The aromatics will be there. But what we can bring as winemakers is bring in texture and mouthfeel, and that you do through lees contact, through skin contact, things like that. Low sulfurs for extended periods of time, really let the wine develop. And that's where I think is that's the stuff that I get really excited about.
Awesome. Sure. Can I ask you a random question? What did you study?
Viticulture and enology. So I grew up on a small wine farm in Bonnievale called Van Celsel. So it's small, like 35-hectare wine farm. So I grew up in the vineyards, going down to the winery in harvest time whenever I could and whenever it wasn't too busy. And so, I've always, I think since I could talk, basically, I always said I'm going to be a winemaker. So I'm one of those fortunate people that get to live their hobby basically every day and get paid for it. So it's quite nice.
Love that. I just ask because I know a lot of different winemakers take so many different routes to get to making wine. So nice that you just knew, nail on the head, and now here we are.
You're actually one of the first to you'll
like
do
from
winemaking.
Did you go to Saxenburg or Stellenbosch?
Stellenbosch to the university.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are so many routes to it because at the end of the day, winemaking is part science, but there's a large part that's art and that's more than gut feel. So there's not one way to get to it because feel you can't teach at varsity. You can learn about chemistry and all of those kind of geeky things at varsity, but the feel of it, the taste and the palate and the that experience is time on the ground, and you can't teach someone that. You have to, because you just have to spend the time and invest the time in doing it.
Sure.
Wow. Do you feel like you're more sciencey or more on the creative side?
Once again, I think in the middle. I love science. Popping up. No, I honestly feel I'm quite in the middle. I love science. I really like figuring all of those things out. But at the same time, I'm very much a feel winemaker. So it's very much on gut feel in the moment and what I see, and so and So the science part of wine is fantastic, the part that we can explain. But the part that I find really intriguing is the part that we can't explain. There's something in the great wines of the world that you can't put in numbers. No, there's no chemical analysis that is going to show you this is a 100-point wine or an incredible wine. That is, there's something else in it, and that's the stuff that I think that's really exciting.
Sure, awesome, sure.
And how long have you been a winemaker?
I graduated in 2012. Did my internship in 2012 at Hlumelo for 6 months, and then started with them permanently from 2012 onwards. Then in 16, did a 7-month stint in America, and then came back, did another harvest at Hlumelo, worked another vintage there, and then went to the Morganson, and then the Saxenburg opportunity came up at the end of 19. Yeah.
Okay, one more question. How did you find winemaking in America and the wines there at large compared to South Africa?
It's America is such a massive country, so it's almost difficult to put it all in one little basket. I worked in a very remote, random little spot an hour from the Mexican border in Arizona, Wilcox. So crazy cowboy country. So completely different, very experimental, because the industry is very young there. But I traveled quite a bit up through California, so tasting in Paso, Robles, and Napa and Sonoma, obviously. And those wines are, especially when you go to Napa and Sonoma, those wines, you look at their Cabernets, I mean, their wines are big, the alcohols are massive. It's lots of oak, lots of American oak. The wines are so big and rich. And sometimes it can be overbearing, but I found that when they hit those wines right, it is so impressive. It's almost the only way I could picture it in my mind was like a sumo wrestler walking on a tightrope, because it's this massive, massive wine that's not supposed to be balanced, but somehow it's staying upright, and it was just mind-boggling. So, some really intriguing wines. I found Paso Robles, an incredible region. It's a smaller region. It's not as heralded, I think, as Napa. Napa and Sonoma gets all the column inches, and everyone goes on about Napa and Sonoma. Really, that Paso making fantastic wines, some beautiful, beautiful sites. But once again, that country is so large. You can go to Oregon, you can go to Washington. There are so many different. So it's difficult to put them, I think, in one little box.
Okay. Sure. Cool. Well, I think just a quick note, I think, before we move on from the shot, but about the actual case. I think we've always loved you guys for the really smart and mixed cases, which I think you guys are doing a little bit sooner than a few others. And I've always gotten it quite right in terms of the balance. So love the journey, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, that this mixed case, for example, would take you on. So everything from the Sauv right through to your sort of big body reds. Really like that. And I think last time we did something together, it was also a full experience. Yeah. So I love that about you and you guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's important when it comes to a wine club, especially, is to do something, that's unique. And, everyone can give discount. I always say, if you want to buy a wine on discount, go only, and every day you can buy something else at 15 or 20% off, So that, obviously that is part of the benefits of being a wine club member. You do get discounts, you do get free tastings. But for me, the really exciting part is doing special wines and putting a case together. We put a lot of thought into the cases that we put together, and so it means a lot when you say that you like the balance that we have in our cases, because a lot of thought goes into it, and to really present something that is unique and shows the journey of Saxenburg. At the end of the day, we strive with all our wines to make wines that are thought-provoking, wines that are elegant, and wines that showcase Saxenburg and showcase the Portugal Hills terroir. And all of these I think do that in different ways. So they all they're all for different moments, and all for, wine is always, when I hate it when someone asks me, oh, what is your favorite wine? Because it so depends on the moment when you're having the wine. Sometimes it's a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, often it's Chardonnay, and a lot of times it's Syrah. But it's very much dependent on on the moment, the people you're with, and that's, I think this case gives a bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And I also think that the fact that this is only released every 6 months, aka twice a year, like you can imagine the kind of thought that goes into, curating this box. I think that's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to move on to the red?
Sure.
I still have
Are there any questions or anything from anyone? Just
yes,
before we move on.
Yeah, I think there are. If I can just
to not wait till the end.
How many places in South Africa can you study viticulture at?
Good
So,
question.
Dirk, I think over to you.
The main is basically University of Stellenbosch and Elsenburg, so both in Stellenbosch. So yeah, I think university it's a 4-year degree, and then Stellenbosch is a 3-year degree, and both are fantastic courses. Both have different strong points, and there's some fantastic winemakers coming out of both.
Okay. I just saw one more question, sorry if you don't mind, in the comments. If we could just get that before we move on to the red. What kind of barrels do you use, American or French, from Portugal?
It's all French. In the past, Saxenburg used some American oak on some of the much older Chardonnay and especially some of the older Shirazes. But in recent years, in probably the last 5 or 6 years, we're exclusively on French oak. We've also, the toastings have also gotten lighter over time. So very much, to let the fruit shine through. And the Chardonnay is predominant. All the newer barrels on the Chardonnay is all 500 liters in size. So obviously, the larger the barrel, the less oak influence you have on the wine. So we've gone to larger formats, lighter toastings. So we want that oak, to bring in texture, to bring in mouthfeel, but we want it very much to be a supporting act to the fruit. I always say, if you overpower a wine with oak, you take away all regionality of the wine. Then you can make that wine anywhere in the world, and you put a bunch of oak on it. All it says is, I've got a big bank balance and I can buy a lot of barrels.
Yeah.
And that's, that's
Yeah.
That's actually a good way to put it.
First things first, label. Just have to show you guys, and can you see?
Let me just bring it closer.
I don't know about the light.
There we go.
That's perfect. But love that.
And I love that
also,
it's the words.
Yeah,
there's no tiny business.
Yeah, we're not. I love that.
It looks like someone's handwriting, and then it was just made into a label.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that elegant.
So the thinking, I'll go a little bit, before we get stuck into the specific wine, I'll go a little bit about the thinking of these wines and how the label design came to be as well. So this falls under our family series. And the family series is a range of wines that we make exclusively for the wine. So when I started at Saxenburg, I said to Vincent and Fiona, listen, I think it's important for us to always experiment and push the boundaries a little bit. And so I'm always going to have something in the cellar that I don't necessarily have a direct home for. I don't necessarily know what product it's going to go into when I'm making it. So yeah, always have a few interesting barrels. And that's very much almost how these wines came to be. And then if we find something that we're really excited about, we bottle it under the family series, and it's released exclusively for the wine, to the wine club. So the only people that can get to taste the wine are you, obviously, and all our wine club members. So it's really to make, once again, to reward our wine club members, and to thank them for their support, is to make wines that are exclusively for them, and to really, showcase the experimental side of Saxenburg, the stuff that's, not necessarily on a commercial scale, but on small scale, of both these family series wines. So we've got 2 family series wines in this case. It's the 2nd generation Syrah, and then the Winemaker's Blend. And both of these are only about 700 bottles in production. So really small quantities. And the thinking behind the label of this is also to reflect, all of these wines are made very minimalistic, very, low intervention to winemaking. And it's almost, just the bare wine that we want to showcase. And that's the approach with the label as well. I feel strongly that that branding must speak to the wine. You know, you should pick up a bottle and it looks handmade. You know, it's wax sealed. It looks like it's a small batch, handmade, thought, or you know, wine that a lot of thought went into.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind the labels as well. And the second generation Syrah, the name is, you know, Saxenburg has been making Syrah since the Bureau family bought bought the farm in 1989. And, you know, they had a vision. Mr. Bureau had a vision years ahead of his time. I think there was about 600 hectares of Syrah planted in the country when they bought the farm, and they planted most of the farm. The farm is still more than a third planted to Syrah. So they planted a lot of Syrah at the time when everyone was planting Cabernet and Pinotage. And now, you know, now we're reaping the rewards of that. And Saxenburg Syrah or Shiraz has always been, you know, big in style. There was, for a large portion of time, there was American oak influence as well, you know, so much more that Australian style, almost Shiraz. And that has slowly started to evolve over time, you know, as we're, you know, one must always look critically at your wines and not trying to find fault, but to see, you know, where can we evolve and how can we better showcase our terroir. So the private collection 2017 was the first time that we've labeled it under Syrah as opposed to Shiraz. And then this second generation is the first wine in the history of Saxenburg to have a large component whole bunch fermentation in there. It's got an alcohol of just over 13%. So it's very light, you know, it's much more that edgy, in a nervy or Syrah style as opposed to a big Shiraz. So that's why it's the second generation. It's also Vincent and Fiona is recently taken over from their parents. So they are the second generation. And this is, you know, the next generation of Saxenburg. And that's the idea with this wine.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And
yeah, like I said, 55% whole bunches in older oak for 12 months. So from two blocks, predominantly from one block, it's a southwest facing block, and then there's a little bit from a bushvine Syrah vineyard as well. But yeah, all picked quite early, very soft extraction, and then in barrel without, you know, all in older barrels for the 12 months.
Sure.
Okay.
On the subject of sort of balancing generations and legacy and all of that, and sort of sticking to the true form of the winery, but also bring in, you know, some artistry and some room to play. I have a big question for you, which is, maybe it's a little unfair because it's like, what, year 2 for you at Saxenburg, but what do you think, what would you say rather you would want your legacy to be post your time? I know it's really unfair.
That's a hard
I know.
It's a difficult one to answer. I think for me, what I strive for always with all my wines is, and I think that's where we're all very like-minded at Saxenburg, is we want to make wines that are thought-provoking. So that's the first thing for me. You know, I don't want to make wines that are just boring, plain old wines. You know, but everyone might like them, but you know, there's nothing special about them. I strive to make wines that are, you know, that you can enjoy and that's very, you know, enjoyable, but also you can sit back and you can almost spend an evening with the wine and look at the wine and, you know, think about it. That's what it gets me excited about wines, and that's what I want to give others. So I think that, you know, in the one sense is that, and then the other, you know, a big focus of Saxenburg has always been Syrah, and I think it will, and no, I know it will always be Syrah. So I think, you know, to establish Saxenburg again as it's a name that Saxenburg has actually had for many years, but to keep that going and to establish Saxenburg as one of the top Syrah producers in the country, you know, showcase our terroir through especially our Syrah, through all our wines, but especially our Syrah, I think is very much if I can, you know, after my time at Saxenburg and Saxenburg is up there mentioned with, you know, all the great Syrahs in South Africa, then I'd be very, 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 very happy.
Sure. Love that. Cool. Cool legacy.
Yeah, I love this, guys.
Yeah. And I must say, for me, I'm very enamored by a winemaker or winery that can do Chardonnay and Syrah very well.
Yeah.
I must say that's like my.
That's not the first time we've actually.
That's like my snobbery kind of element. That's my contribution to old school wine land. But those two sort of grapes, and seeing how a winemaker. Oh no! Oops. Sorry, broke a glass.
Well,
sorry. Yeah, we'll get another one. But yeah, just I think observing certain winemakers and wineries, and how they allow those two grapes to show their true expression, allowing them to be the classic sort of expressions, but with a little bit of, you know, that South Africanness or some fun or personality. That's always my judge. And yeah, this is beautiful. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I love working with, you know, I love working with a lot of grape varieties, but I've got a special love for Syrah and for Chardonnay, and I think partly because they showcase their terroir so beautifully. You know, you can plant them in a lot of different regions. You know, we've got Syrah all over the country, Stellenbosch, Swartland, Hlumelo, you know, everywhere. You've got some fantastic Syrah examples. Same with Chardonnay. You've got Robertson, you've got Hlumelo and Arder, you've got Elgin, you've got Stellenbosch, you've got literally, you know, it's so vast and they're different. The expressions are different in each of these regions, you know, and that's, I always say our challenge as winemakers is really, we just interpret our terroir, and every winemaker is going to interpret it slightly different, you know, and that's your own expression that you bring into it. But we try and interpret terroir, and those two varieties especially, a little bit in all varieties, but those two varieties especially just showcase the terroir so beautifully.
Cool.
I'm really enjoying this new world like Syrah life. I personally don't really enjoy Shiraz. Like the moment you call it a Shiraz, mentally I'm gone. But like I said Syrah, I said, oh, okay, cool, let's do it. And it's got all those elements we've really been enjoying lately with the Syrahs. You know, especially, I mean, I guess the Swartland Syrahs have been, you know, in our face a lot lately. So it's nice to just get more of that from, you know, everywhere kind of thing.
No, fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think what's, you know, and I love bringing whole bunch in something like Syrah, because there's a tannin grip or a tension that it almost brings to the back of the palate. Which I find, you know, alluring almost, which is unique on Saxenburg. Oftentimes, when you pick Syrah earlier, or the earlier you pick red grapes, the fruit profile is oftentimes much more red fruit. You know, that bright red fruit profile. What I find here on our site on Syrah, even though this wine has got an alcohol of just over 13%, it's already quite dark fruited in profile. Yeah. So it's fresh and it's bright, but it's darker fruit. It's not these, you know, just strawberries and raspberries and very, very light red, which I find quite unique, which is, I think, you know, quite a signature to Saxenburg. And I was, you know, very fortunate. I had a fantastic tasting with Christian Eads about 2 weeks ago now, and he actually scored the wine 95. So that's always nice to get that tap on the shoulder from Christian. Yeah.
Shout out, yeah, awesome.
Dirk, I wanted to ask you, do people ever compare your Syrah to the Shiraz, your private collections Shiraz?
Yes, we did, when we launched the 2017 Syrah last year, we did quite a few tastings where we showed people the 16 Shiraz and the 17 Syrah. And I mean, it's quite divided oftentimes about, you know, it's all about personal preference, what people like. You know, both people generally like both wines because they're qualitatively, I think, both, you know, superb wines. They're just stylistically slightly different. So you always going to have some people that prefer the Shiraz style, that riper fruit, bigger wine almost, or bolder wine, and then you're going to have people that prefer the Syrah style. I think for us personally, you know, it's not. We are a heritage brand. We don't want to take away from that, you know, at all. And we always want to keep true to those roots. But I think moving evolving into a Syrah style is just showcasing our terroir that little bit better, because we're not hiding it with anything.
Okay, love that.
And I like the inclusion of indicating that you are still a heritage brand, because I think we've gotten a lot of Syrah from not so heritage brands, and like heritage brands have always been Shiraz people, that it's that like big, bold, like overwhelming, you know, intense big wine. Whereas like this new style has been associated so much more with like boutique winemakers and like newer winemakers who have like
younger,
very small, literally younger guys who, you know, just entered the game kind of thing. So I think it's nice to have this come from a big brand, but have you guys evolve into like both spaces. You don't have to always be one or the other. You can live somewhere on the scale. You can be many things at the same time.
Exactly. I think that's very true. And you know, with a brand like Saxenburg, it's got such a rich history with Shiraz. I mean, it launched. It was the 1993 private collection. Shiraz was the first South African wine to be listed in the top 100 wines by Wine Spectator. The Triple our Saxenburg Shiraz Select was the first cult wine basically launched in South Africa. It was when they launched it, the 1998 vintage. It was the most expensive wine in the country. I'll give you a guess. How much did it sell for in 2000? Most expensive wine in the country.
Like 1,000 rand?
No, in 2000.
2000.
Did it sell for 100?
I'd say 200, 250.
250,000?
No.
250 rand.
250,000.
250,000?
Yeah, in 2000.
350 rand a bottle. And it was the most expensive one. I actually had a tasting with Michael Fridjon not long after I started, and he said to me, yeah, when they launched it, he was like, oh, how can they charge this much for a bottle of wine? How far we've come, eh?
Wow. On the opposite spectrum.
Look, Wine Saver says it's 550. I'm sure, no, I think we gave it too much. Because we were saying 250,000.
We thought like it was sold on auction. So it went for like a very big number. Wow.
Jeez.
It was 300. It was actually the first wine to make it to 500 rand a bottle, I think, in the country as well.
Wow.
Quite incredible.
That's so cool.
That's why I said the history, we don't want to away from that heritage.
Loki, I want to go back to that time when wine was an expensive wine was 500 rand.
Yeah.
It's not an expensive wine. It's expensive.
Very much so. Look, but with our current price, wine is still cheaper than petrol at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we don't have to go anywhere. We just have to drink the wine. Stay at home, drink wine. It's fine.
Don't invite me. We can't afford to come.
Yeah. Here's what it is. But Dirk, I'm just saying this for the record. Without saying it, you kind of actually said what your favorite wines are.
Yeah.
Just for the record. And we didn't even ask you the question.
on the record,
okay.
I don't have a favorite wine. You have to love all your children. But you love some more than others, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. I've only got an 11-year-old son. I love him the most, so I can't. I don't know how to be on this more. But no, I think, you know, I've got a special love for working and enjoying Syrah, just because it's such an interesting variety. It showcases terroir. It's so varied. You can plant it in different spots and get completely different expressions. Then Chardonnay as well, you know, obviously, and then the things like, you know, Chenin and Cab and Sauvignon, they're all, you know, close to my heart as well. And then there are more, you know, more out there varieties that are also very exciting. So, you know, there's a place for all of them. But, you know, fortunately, working at Saxenburg, I get to work with a lot of Syrah, and that's one of my favorites.
Love it. Do you have anything happening in the chats there, or is it just comments?
No questions yet. But guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments or the question box. Ideally, the question box, so we can rummage through them. But Please let us know if you have any questions. We're really enjoying the 2020 second generation Syrah at the moment. So, Dirk, if you can just let us know the rest of kind of the wines in the box for this month.
So I've got them actually behind there. It's so we've gone through the Sauvignon, the Chardonnay, and then the second generation Syrah. The Winemaker's blend is quite a unique blend. It's a blend of Syrah, Cabernet, Malbec, and Cabernet Franc, but not the general Shiraz Cab. It's a bit of a different take on it. So quite an interesting playful blend. That's the idea with the Winemaker's blend wines. I did one a white one for our March case, and also a very interesting. That was a Chenin Chardonnay Semi or Sauvignon blend. So something to really showcase the farm, but to be playful and interesting. And then of course we have to go to the heritage side. So we've got the 2008 private collection Shiraz wine that is showing really beautifully at the moment. It's a phenomenal wine. And then we've also got our 2013 private collection Cabernet Sauvignon, which is also, it's now at 8 years, almost 9 years from vintage, and it's really starting. It's hitting its stride now. So, and we've got, fortunately, we've got a Vinatec dating back to about 92, 93, and we've got cases held back of most of our wines up to back then, and every now and then, we've got the very difficult, horrible task of tasting through all of that.
Terrible.
That's what we get. That's how we select wines for the wine club. We always want to put some older vintages in there as well, and just to show where did Saxenburg come from and how are these wines showing. Because you can't. It's always difficult when someone launches a new wine, you don't really know how the wine's going to age, because there's no, we all can assume, and looking at the wine and analyzing the wine and make assumptions about how it's going to age. But the best, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. So to be able to showcase wines, that have been stored beautifully, that have some age on them, and to show how beautifully they're showing at the moment, it's a privilege.
The Saxenburg Cab Sav is literally maybe one of my top 5 Cab Savs. I am so excited.
And she's our Cab Sav queen.
Yeah, she's our Cab queen.
But I've been drinking a lot of Cab Sav lately. I think I've overdone it a bit. But the Saxenburg one literally blew me away, because I got it from last year's case, so I kept it. And I had it recently, and I couldn't shush about it. I was like, oh my God, guys.
Was this our Christmas?
Yeah.
Christmas package, yes. And I think, sorry, Dirk, sorry to cut you, but I think that just because of the fact that you are creating a wine club box, and as a person or as a consumer who would have a wine club box, and you have a 2008 and a 2013, I think that's absolutely brilliant. That's so unheard of in a general sort of kind of monthly, box. I know that you guys do it every 6 months, and I think that's what makes it that much more special. That you add kind of the special gems that you'd want to kind of cherish and keep and have in your collection. And I think that's
it. Also goes back to Dirk's point of if you just want a 15% off kind of thing, there's so many places you can go to, but this is something you buy into, and it's beautiful, and you actually get gains back in wine gains. So
that's a question.
Let me get closer. Sorry to see the question.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay, cool. No, I just checked what is the price strategy for 2022? Looking at all variables.
What?
Like I said, a difficult question.
Oh my gosh.
Poor Sugar wants to know.
not the only one to decide on that, because let me tell you, the last few years it's been so difficult to do any planning and to estimate where anything is going. We've seen massive spikes now with all the troubles with the ports and bringing dry goods in and all of that. We've seen massive spikes in prices. So always there are always massive spikes on the input side, but we try not to put that over. As much as we can, we try not to put that over to the consumers. Yeah. So it is it is something that we're currently working on for the pricing. We generally our pricing generally comes in. The new prices come in March, if I'm not mistaken. So that is something that we'll look at in the coming months. To see where we're going to be at, but it won't be. You always try and keep the price hikes as minimal as possible.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, I think we have one more question, or two actually. Which wine rules do you think need to be dropped forever?
Geez, I don't know. What rules?
What do we think?
Rules are like stemless glasses, maybe.
Is that a rule? That's not a rule.
Like you have to have a glass with a stem and not a.
I still think you do.
I think that's a rule, right?
I think you have to keep a stem.
No,
I
think it serves a real function.
Wait, stem or stemless?
Stem. Stem is important to keep.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna debate forever now. I don't want to. So stemless.
There's a place for stemless glasses. There's a place, you get some really nice stemless glasses nowadays, which work really well. I still love the glass with the stem, and I probably always will drink my best wines out of glasses with stems. But I think there is a place for them.
Where's the place?
For stemless.
What is this place? Drop location
on the grass.
Sorry.
Where's this location for stemless glasses?
More when it's chilled around a braai and you don't want it, it's a more chilled environment, then you can have a stemless glass. What's wrong with a stemless glass? Come on.
Hot wine. Hot. Hot.
I do think a pet peeve of mine is people that pour their glasses up to here and then they complain that it gets hot. I mean, for smaller servings, drink it and then don't pour mass amounts.
Like it's
and you also don't need
2 hours, so obviously it's kind of hot.
I think another big rule is like,
guys, they asked us which rules we didn't have to go, and here we are just talking about our pet peeves.
Bringing in more rules. I think one misconception, almost, it's not really a rule. I think one misconception that I would like everyone to move away from is that you must, to be able to enjoy wine and to talk about wine, you must be able to list all the fruits that you smell in wine and all the wonderful things and all of that. I want, if that's a rule or a misconception that should be broken. Absolutely. At the end of the day, wine is to be enjoyed. If you can tell me I like it or I don't like it, enough. That is enough.
Yeah.
It's great. We all like to geek out about wine. But it's like, I always say, it's like coffee. Almost every person drinks coffee. And you can geek out about coffee just as much as you can about wine. You can go into the origins and about how to roast it, all of that. Not everyone drinks coffee, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But no one ever asks a coffee drinker, or, no one is put off by coffee by not knowing, oh, I don't know this origin, or I don't know what this extraction is, or I don't know this. You enjoy coffee and you say, oh, I like coffee. And wine should, to some extent, have a bit more, be more approachable like that as
well. Absolutely.
Yes. Sure.
And I just wanted to add to the coffee thing before you move on.
Sure.
And that is why I'm going to have my Frisco Baxi instead of Jacob's.
We've got huge coffee wars here.
She's drinking chicory and she calls it coffee. You can't drink grape juice and call it... You can't drink grape juice and call it wine.
We've just discussed
But you can't drink grape Call it wine.
But Oksala or Dirk said that it is up to you what you taste and what you feel.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but it's just not coffee.
Okay.
It's coffee flavored drink.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk, for the clarity.
I've got another wine rule that I think needs some debunking. And that is adding ice to your wine. I do not think it's revolutionary. Okay, it depends which me is present on the day. But the braai, yeah. My braai moments, probably add ice. I think there's a time and place for that as well. So a warm summer day and it's lunch maybe, where you've got a long day ahead. There's nothing wrong with ice. It just gives you actually even a little bit more longevity because your drink is super cool, and you've got a long day ahead of you. And it's just how you like your wine, maybe, right? I don't think it means
Yeah.
a shocking person, oh my gosh, you don't appreciate anything. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think, we are in South Africa when it's 40 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Your glass of is going to be warm 5 minutes after you poured it. So I don't have a problem. Look, I have a problem if you've got more ice than wine in your glass. I think that's a bit problematic.
There's the line.
But one ice here or there, does the trick a lot of times. Once again, I always tell people, serve a bit smaller, then you don't need as much ice, and the wine doesn't get as hot. But I agree. There's a place and time for it. Obviously, when you're opening a 900 Rand bottle of wine, you're not gonna put ice into it. But around the braai, you're chilled, you're relaxed, you just want to have a good time, you just want to drink some nice wine.
Yeah.
Wine, I don't see a problem with that.
And I was gonna say, for example, like to a 900 Rand wine point, like obviously there's a time and place for everything, as we've discussed, with stemless glasses, with your coffee or whatever. And I think, like, for example, a wine that you drink often at home, let's say, you're quite used to how it tastes, and if you're drinking it and you're bringing that to the braai as your contribution, I don't think it's going to revolutionize the tasting experience of it. It's something you're really familiar with, you love it anyway. But I think if it's your first time tasting something personally, I think maybe that's where you want to draw back on the ice so that you can have a full experience, you can really, really taste it. If it's 900 Rand, maybe just think about how much ice we're adding. But yeah, I think it's, to your point, time and place, but just we don't have to be so sticky.
That's a good word.
Yeah,
stick.
Agreed.
Yeah.
My rule is red wine and room temperature.
Oh yes.
Put it in the fridge. Just
everything
put
room
it
temperature,
in
really.
the fridge.
Everything room
wine
temperature.
must go in the fridge. That's about it from me. Probably coldest white wine, red wine, but still cold.
Fridge all through.
Yeah. Room temperature. There's room temperatures and there's room temperatures. Room temperature if it's fine. Room temperature when it's 35 degrees outside is not so fine. So then I agree. A lot of times, and especially with these, with the lighter styles of red that we're getting, that's coming, the Cinzers and things like that. Those smashing if you put them in the fridge, serve them cold, and they're brilliant. You want to drink them.
Yeah.
You want to drink them warm.
100%.
Yeah.
Like then you can drink great wine in the summer effortlessly.
Yeah.
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 I think mine is still the
hands.
Do not touch this area of the glass. That is my only rule. Stem only.
If it's stemless, you can do it. You've got a stem. There.
I think we had one final question in the chat box because we read one out of the two.
Oh no, we read that.
Oh, we had read.
Oh, you read the
first one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I think
That's everything.
yeah.
That's all the questions.
But just lovely comments about how personal the wine journey is.
Every day.
Yeah.
Make it your own.
Yes, champagne and Chardonnay. The grasp is important. You mustn't go like this. You must go.
No, Chardonnay.
Oh, like this. This is fancy.
This is what we learned.
This is real fancy. Oh, it's two.
And it gives you good control.
Is it 2 or 1?
It's this. That's what I mean.
1, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and it makes it easier to swirl because you're balanced.
Oh, Dirk, can you
Exactly.
bring it closer to the camera so we can see what you're doing?
Yeah, it's normal holding it towards the bottom.
I swirl glasses without thinking about it. People, it's always so funny when you get. There's always a few telltale signs when you that someone's not an avid wine drinker. The first is you bring the glass to your mouth without smelling it. Like I always, like, even if I'm just drinking wine casually and I'm not really thinking, I always do that. It's the natural instinct. And then I tend to stand with a glass and always swirl it. It's just like the glass is in my hand.
Like a reflex.
Yeah, it's a bit of a reflex.
Like this, like.
And then you get people that don't drink wine that often. They're like, how do you swirl? How do you get it right?
Do you know what else winemakers do?
Swirl on the table.
Yeah, when you open the cork, when you take it out of the bottle and it's an immediate smelling it, that's always a sign.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. Great.
Well, I think we're through everything.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to ask anything?
I don't have any questions, but just mostly for our viewers right now, how can they join the Saxenburg Wine Club and get this?
So the easiest is go. I mean, you guys, anyone can follow us on all the social media channels. There are always updates there. We try and put some interesting content on there as well. But you can go to our website. There's a whole explanation there. And you can purchase the case there. The case is only 2,100 Rand, and it comes in this lovely wooden box. It's packed in this beautiful, beautiful box as well. And yeah, and then there's a lot of other, we try and release all the vintages on the website as well. So the best is, go to our website, and if you've got any questions, pop us an email or give us a call. We're always keen to chat about all things Saxenburg and all things wine.
Yes.
And then just one more thing, the Chardonnay, it's a pre-release, right? So they'll only get it in the box.
Yes. So the 2020 Chardonnay is only in the box. Like I said, the 2019 did really well, but we're currently still on 2019, and we'll only be releasing the 2020 towards the middle probably of next year. So this is really a glimpse of the future. And then the same, obviously, with the family series wines. Those wines you can only get if you're a wine club member. So if you buy the case, then you can buy those wines individually. You can buy the family series wines individually as well. But you first need to buy a case.
And how many cases are available?
Of the wine club?
Yes.
As many.
No, well, there's not.
As many.
Okay, understood.
So there's no cap on that.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, but glasses, it just goes to show that if you want to drink the wines that we drinking, honey, then you need to get onto the Saxenburg Wine Club.
Also, totally worth it for Christmas. Like,
Absolutely.
splurge. It's just twice a year. Like, you're not doing this multiple times a year. 2K one time. What are you gonna spend that money on? Sneakers. Spend on some good wine.
Yeah.
And literally, like, chances are you'll probably use the 4 bottles and then keep 2 good bottles that you really, really love and, like, just store them for a while.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's a beautiful thing about a case, especially when you have, like, prized possessions in a case. Like, yeah.
I think we've definitely
And we never know
towards case buying.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's different consumers or whatever. People have different buying behaviors. But personally, at this stage, it's so much smarter to just buy a case.
Yeah.
And loved mixed case because it's a bit of everything like this. As we said, like, you just get a full taste of the brand, like a little bit of here and there, and and even if it's the same wine, but in a case, it's like you get to keep it. It's like load shedding. Oh, it's all thing. It's still visible. Yeah. It's not load shedding, guys.
Yeah, I think mixed case is always interesting, especially when you don't know a brand. I find mixed cases are quite intriguing because it gives you a bit of a wider glimpse. I mean, if you have the budget and you come across wines that you really like, it's always good to buy 6 or 12 bottles, you know, and then drink some now, taste it now, think how long it's going to age. Then next year or a year after that, open another bottle, and then, you know, look as it evolves. And then you've got at least some, you know, because it's always the worst is when you have these prized possessions, but you've only got one of them. And it's like, who will be the lucky people that I open this wine for? It's always so difficult.
Yeah,
definitely. And then you put too much like hope into one bottle, and it's like, come on, you could do this once more, you know, like,
definitely.
Do you get me?
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Any more questions? No.
That is it. I think we've had a really good combo. It's been an actual like hour.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much to you, Dirk, for your time and for
your great wines.
Yeah, for your great wines that we've really grown to love, I think, over the last 3 years or so.
Yeah.
Honestly. Always a pleasure to be in touch.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then
thank you so much.
Sorry, Dirk,
Sorry.
But we have to put on the record that next year.
See you there.
What's happening? See you there.
See you at Saxenburg.
See you at Saxenburg.
Yeah. Please come. No, and I thank you from everyone at Saxenburg for for everything that you do as well, and for getting the story of wines out there. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dirk. We appreciate your time. It's been great, and thank you to everyone that's joined. And stayed on the live. Hope you've learned something, and get ready to spend some coin. Open your pockets.